Mark, after 18 years with the company, your role is being eliminated. Please have your things cleared out by the end of the day. That was it. No explanation, no thank you. Just a cold corporate execution. I stared at my manager, Karen, sitting next to someone from HR who avoided making eye contact. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I just nodded once. My name is Mark Ellis, 55 years old. Until that Monday morning, I was the senior systems architect at Rivergate Solutions in Austin, Texas. For nearly 2 decades. I'd been the guy behind the curtain, keeping the servers humming, restoring crashed systems, and designing the backbone infrastructure that allowed everyone else to do their jobs without even thinking about how. I was there when we moved from on-site servers to hybrid cloud. I led the security overhaul after a data breach in 2011. I wrote the custom admin tools that people still use daily. I trained every new IT hire for the past 10 years. I missed birthdays, holidays, and vacations to make sure things kept running. And I never once complained. So when I was called into that office and told my time was up, no transition period, no farewell lunch, I knew something was off. Not surprising, really. I'd noticed the shift weeks earlier. Fewer emails. Meetings happening without me. My admin privileges had started quietly shrinking. And now this. I walked out of the office without saying a word. No dramatic exit. Just a quiet man with a cardboard box and a past no one seemed to care about. I passed coworkers I'd mentored, most avoided eye contact, some looked stunned. I didn't blame them. They were scared. I was the warning shot. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that I wasn't just the guy who fixed broken things. I was the one who built the systems in the first place. And I had kept records. Detailed ones. For 18 years. They thought they'd erased me. But I had already planned for this. They didn't fire a technician. They fired the one man who understood how everything truly worked. Back at my desk. I packed my things slowly, methodically. A framed photo of my wife and son from a trip to the Rockies. A coffee mug that said, "World's okayest tech guy," a gag gift from a summer intern years ago. And a tiny, half-dead succulent I'd somehow kept alive under harsh fluorescent lights for almost 2 decades. Across the open floor. Younger employees stole glances in my direction but quickly looked away. Some of them were developers and analysts I had personally trained. Good people, eager. Talented, but most had no idea how deep the systems really ran. They knew how to use the tools. They didn't know how those tools were made, or who built them to begin with. Over the years, I'd written hundreds of scripts, implemented countless workarounds, and created custom software integrations no one else ever bothered to document. Because I did. And the funny thing about being thorough is, no one notices until you're gone. I had mapped the entire network architecture. Maintained legacy systems that the newer hires didn't even realize were still operational. And set up multiple audit protocols at the request of legal years ago, back when a compliance scare nearly tanked a merger deal. I'd been told to make sure we never get blindsided again, and I had. I still had the receipts. That's what they never understood. I wasn't just the IT guy. I was the infrastructure. I didn't stay quiet because I was passive, I stayed quiet because I was always thinking 10 steps ahead. While others chased the latest trends or showed off in meetings, I focused on making sure no one ever noticed the systems were fragile. Because they weren't. I made sure of that. As I placed the last item in my box and looked around the office one final time, Emma, from marketing, walked over. "Mark. I just heard. This doesn't make sense. You basically are this place." I gave her a tired smile. "Companies change." "Yeah, but not like this," she said. her voice trembling. "It's all right," I said. But it wasn't. And deep down, I knew something they didn't. This wasn't just the end of a job. It was the beginning of something much bigger. As I walked out of the building, cardboard box in hand, I saw Karen, my manager, standing by her office door, pretending to check her phone. She didn't look up. No goodbye. No handshake. Just making sure I actually left. That told me everything I needed to know. I sat in my car for a long minute, staring at the building I'd spent nearly half my life inside. 18 years of upgrades. Outages, deployments, and data recovery. 18 years of protecting systems no one understood. My access badge, surrendered moments earlier, had been renewed 17 times. Then I smiled. Because I knew what they didn't. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. What I felt was sharper than anger, calculated. They thought getting rid of me meant erasing me. But I'd been preparing for something like this since the first signs of rot appeared. 6 months ago. Karen hired a consultant named Logan Pierce, a polished outsider with a flashy resume and a lot of big words. Digital synergy. Cost optimization. Agile restructuring. Every sentence was buzzword salad. But what caught my attention wasn't what he said, it was how meetings started happening without me. Then my admin privileges began quietly changing. Nothing obvious. Just small restrictions to core systems I'd always managed. I could have raised hell. But I didn't. Instead, I documented everything. Is everything okay at work? My wife Rachel had asked one night over dinner. Just shifting winds, I said, sipping my coffee. Nothing I haven't seen before. But deep down, I knew this was different. I started checking system logs more often. I noticed odd traffic patterns. Authorization tokens being generated without proper requests. And then, during a routine audit, something no one else even bothered to do anymore, I found it, strange, recurring payments to a vendor I didn't recognize, Nova Core Systems. Registered just a year ago. Business address? A strip mall mail center. At first, I thought it was sloppiness. Then I saw the pattern. They thought pushing me out meant they were safe. But they forgot one thing: when you spend nearly 2 decades protecting a company, you also learn exactly where its weak points are. And sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one holding all the keys. The next morning was quiet. No 6:30 alarm. No badge swipe. Just me, a half-empty cup of black coffee, and the hum of my home office. Rachel had already left for the gym. The house felt still. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, there was no inbox waiting for me, no alerts blinking red. Instead, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was a slim metal flash drive, one of several I'd prepared over the years, not for revenge, but for responsibility. Back when Rivergate's legal team had asked me to build a threat detection and audit system, I made it clear, we'd need off-site backups in case something internal went wrong. They agreed. Then forgot. I didn't. I plugged it in and started digging. The files were all there: meeting minutes, internal memos, authorization logs. I had a full year's worth of vendor invoices, payment approvals, and system access logs. And the deeper I looked, the clearer the picture became. Nova Core Systems wasn't just a suspicious vendor, it was a front. The transfers had started modestly, $5,000 here, $7,800 there. But by the end of the second quarter, payments were pushing $50,000 monthly. Inflated charges for cloud optimization services and enterprise transition architecture. Terms vague enough to pass a lazy audit. But I wasn't lazy. I pulled up the vendor registration. NovaCore was listed under a holding company registered to a P.O. box outside Houston. The listed owner, Bradley Pierce. A quick LinkedIn search confirmed the connection, Logan Pierce's older brother. Consultant turned co-conspirator. It all clicked. Karen hadn't just fired me for budget reasons. She and Logan needed me out of the way before someone traced the flow of money. They likely assumed I'd move on quietly, maybe take a payout. Lick my wounds. They really didn't know me. I didn't storm into offices. I didn't threaten lawsuits. That's not how you bring down a scheme built on arrogance and sloppiness. I needed precision. Patience. Leverage. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then opened a clean document. At the top, I typed, Evidence Log, Novacor Irregularities. Beneath that, I began building the framework for what would become the most important report of my life. Let them think I'm gone, I thought. Let them believe they won. They just cleared the way for the truth to come through. Wednesday morning, I parked across the street from Rivergate's downtown headquarters. Same building I'd walked into every day for the past 18 years. Today, I wasn't going in. I wasn't wearing my usual work polo or badge. Just jeans, a hoodie, and a purpose. In the passenger seat sat my laptop, already connected to a secure network through a masked IP. Logged in under a legacy test email I'd created years ago, one tied to an internal subdomain but never properly deactivated. Another oversight. Another opportunity. At 9 a.m. I watched a stream of employees file through the revolving doors, coffee cups in hand, badges swiping, not a clue in the world. Most of them wouldn't even know the company's quarterly board meeting was happening upstairs in a private glass-walled room. At 9:15, I sent my first move. Subject line. Financial irregularities, urgent review required. Recipient, Karen Mills, CC'd. Logan Pierce. The email outlined a brief but precise summary of what I'd uncovered: monthly payments to Novacor Systems, linked to a shell company tied to Logan's family. No accusations. No dramatics. Just clean, verifiable facts and one closing sentence. More details available upon request. Recommend internal audit before end-of-quarter filings. By 9:47, my phone rang. Karen. I didn't answer. The voicemail was clipped but tight with panic. Mark, I need to talk with you, immediately. Please call me back. 10 minutes later, an email from HR appeared. Vanessa Cartwright. Director of Employee Relations. Mr. Ellis, your recent communication violates the terms of your exit. Cease all contact with Rivergate employees or further legal action will be taken. Classic move. Shut down, threaten, isolate. Too bad for them, I hadn't signed a separation agreement. And everything I'd sent was already backed up. Twice. On different continents. At noon. I walked into my local bank and opened a safe deposit box. Inside, a second flash drive. On it. Deeper documentation, access logs showing Bradley Pierce's elevated permissions tied directly to financial authorization systems. Time-stamped. IP logged. Undeniable. They'd underestimated me from day one. But now the board was involved. And I was just getting started. By mid-afternoon, the silence broke. 3 missed calls, Karen, Logan. And now, Bradley Pierce himself. That one caught my attention. The man behind the curtain was suddenly reaching out. Desperate times. Then, at 3:17 p.m., I received a message from Aiden. A junior network analyst I'd mentored the past couple of years. Smart kid. Quick learner. Mark, they're saying you sent some crazy email about financial fraud. Logan's freaking out, pulled the entire IT team into a closed-door meeting. Everyone's talking. What's going on? I stared at the message for a moment, then typed a simple reply. Don't get involved. Aiden. Just watch. They were scrambling. And scrambling means mistakes. At 4:05 p.m., my landline rang. No one uses that number but old friends, and people who dig deep. "Mark," said the voice. Calm. Smooth. "Bradley Pierce. We should talk. This whole thing feels like a big misunderstanding." "Is that what we're calling embezzlement now?" I said evenly. He paused. "Look. These transitions are never smooth. If there are questions about financials, we can address them through proper channels. No need to stir things up unnecessarily. The board might disagree." I replied. Silence. Then a shift in tone, low and serious. "You're making a big mistake. We can work something out. Severance, references, whatever you need. Walk away clean." I almost laughed. "You don't get it, Brad. I'm not looking for hush money." I hung up. Minutes later, an email from Vanessa in HR landed in my inbox. Attached is an updated severance agreement reflecting a revised compensation package. "We hope this resolves any concerns." The number had doubled. Along with a fresh confidentiality clause. They still thought this was a game of leverage. A disgruntled employee. A payout. A problem contained. They didn't realize I hadn't even played my full hand. That night, I reviewed every log. Every document, every timestamp I'd compiled. A full forensic pattern was forming, not just recent fraud, but a layered structure of misappropriations going back 3 years. This was bigger than I'd thought. Logan wasn't just a hired consultant. He was the cleanup crew. And I was the data they couldn't bury. By Thursday morning, I had clarity, and confirmation. After hours cross-referencing invoices, network logs, and employee access changes, the full story unfolded. Novacor wasn't a one-time scam. It was just the latest in a series of shadow vendors. 3 years ago, another name popped up, ClearPath Consulting. Vague project descriptions, padded invoices, no real deliverables. The paperwork had been slick. Buried in broader expense categories, strategic operations, infrastructure alignment. All rubber-stamped by the same person, Karen Mills. Ownership of ClearPath? A shell corporation registered to Heather Pierce, Logan's cousin. This wasn't an accident. It was an ecosystem. And I wasn't the first to get in their way. The previous IT director, Jim Marlowe, had suddenly resigned 18 months ago under health reasons. But the guy ran marathons. I reached out to an old contact who confirmed what I suspected. Jim had started asking questions about vendor spending before he voluntarily stepped down. They'd been cleaning house. Now it was time someone else took notice. I needed someone inside, someone who still had a voice at the table. I thought of Eleanor Park, a longtime board member who used to chair the Audit and Risk Committee. Sharp, principled. No tolerance for executive nonsense. Years ago, she and I had worked closely on implementing a security compliance framework. She'd actually listened when I spoke. I found her number buried in an old contact list and dialed. "Eleanor Park," she answered, curt as ever. "Eleanor, it's Mark Ellis." A pause. "Mark? I heard you left Rivergate. Didn't seem like your style." "Wasn't by choice," I said. "But I think you'll want to see what I've found." We met at a quiet cafe near the lake that afternoon. I handed her a slim envelope with a printed summary and a flash drive. "This isn't revenge," I said. "I'm not looking for my job back. I just want someone to know what's really going on." She scanned the first page, her eyes narrowing. "How long have they been doing this?" "Too long." Eleanor looked up, fire in her voice. "The board's meeting tomorrow at 9. I'll be ready." I nodded. It was no longer just my fight. The right people finally had the right data. And I just handed them the match. Friday morning arrived crisp and still. I sat on the front porch with a mug of coffee, watching the neighborhood slowly wake up. No meetings. No deadlines. Just quiet, and the knowledge that everything was in motion. At 8 a.m. sharp, a scheduled email was delivered to every board member at Rivergate Solutions. Subject line: before you approve Q3 bonuses, read this. Attached, a 40-page report. Detailed payment trails. Vendor ownership links. Access logs. Internal emails. A full account of the fraudulent ecosystem Karen, Logan, and Bradley had built, complete with names, dates, and dollar amounts. By 8:17. My phone started buzzing. Unknown numbers. Assistance. Legal. I let them go to voicemail. At 9 a.m., the emergency board meeting began. I knew Eleanor would be there. I also knew she would let the room react naturally, until the truth landed like a brick through the conference table. By 9:36, Aiden texted me again. Mark. Police are here. Karen and Logan just got pulled into separate rooms. Whole place is frozen. What did you do? I didn't answer. Just smiled into my coffee. By 10:15, my phone finally rang again. This time, I picked up. Mr. Ellis, said a calm, serious voice. This is Marilyn Voss, General Counsel for Rivergate. We'd like to speak with you, immediately. I've said everything I needed to, I replied. And it's all been backed up in 5 different places, including one that goes to federal authorities if anything unfortunate happens to me or my family. She paused. The board is taking this very seriously. Several executives have already been placed on leave. We'd appreciate your cooperation. I've already cooperated. Extensively. By 3 p.m. The story broke on a local business news site. Rivergate executives under investigation for multi-million-dollar fraud. Names weren't listed yet, but they would be. That evening, I received a call from Eleanor Park herself. Mark, she said, the board wants to speak with you on Monday. Privately. I knew what that meant. They weren't just trying to fix the damage, they were offering me the power to prevent it from ever happening again. And just like that, the people who pushed me out were now falling over themselves to bring me back. Only this time, the terms would be mine. Monday morning. I walked into Rivergate headquarters wearing a suit I hadn't needed in years. The security guard blinked in surprise, then quickly printed me a visitor badge. Welcome back, Mr. Ellis, he said. Like he meant it this time. Upstairs, the boardroom was quiet but tense. 10 directors sat around a polished mahogany table. At the head was Eleanor Park, who gave me the slightest nod as I entered. Mr. Ellis, began the interim CEO, clearly uncomfortable, thank you for coming. What you uncovered, it's shaken the company. I didn't reply. The board has voted unanimously, she continued. We'd like to offer you a new executive role, Chief Information Security Officer. Full privileges. Reporting directly to the board. I set a folder on the table. Inside, I said calmly, are my terms. They opened it. Eyebrows lifted. Full audit authority across all departments. Independent cybersecurity budget. Final veto on all tech-related financial decisions. This is highly irregular. One board member murmured. So was embezzling millions under your watch, I replied evenly. Silence. You have until noon, I said, standing. I have other offers. By 11:46, they called. Every condition, accepted. That afternoon, as I stood by the window of my new corner office, overlooking the skyline, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about balance. They'd underestimated the quiet guy in IT. Now, they trusted him with the keys to everything. 6 months later, Rivergate looked very different. Karen Mills had been charged with multiple counts of corporate fraud. She took a plea deal, forfeiting bonuses and facing a suspended sentence. Logan Pierce fled the country briefly, Brazil. Of all places, but was extradited weeks later. Bradley Pierce was convicted. His fake vendor scheme had siphoned over $4.8 million. Most of it had been recovered. Thanks to the digital breadcrumbs he never knew he left behind. As for me, I sat in my new corner office on the 21st floor, sunlight spilling across a clean desk and a wall of monitors. Not watching people, watching patterns. Watching gaps. I'd promoted Aiden to lead daily operations. The kid had heart. All he needed was someone to believe in him. That morning, Rachel showed up at my door, smiling. "Lunch?" I grabbed my coat, nodding. As we walked through the IT floor, voices dropped, not from fear, but respect. They all knew. I could have burned the place down. But I didn't. In the elevator, Rachel squeezed my hand. "You good?" I thought for a second. The anger that once pushed me forward had faded. What remained wasn't revenge, it was resolution. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." Outside, the October breeze was crisp. My phone buzzed, "Board approved your next budget increase." Unanimous. I smiled faintly. Rachel caught my look. "What is it?" "Nothing," I said, sliding the phone into my pocket. "Just thinking about bridges. Some collapse. Others, when rebuilt, become stronger than ever. And this one? This one was built to last."